Welcome back to Mobility Doc Sports Network. I'm your host, Dr. John, and today we're going over the Week 6 leading into Week 7 injury report. Now, before we get to some of the headliners, we're going to start with a couple of running backs and some positive news. Nick Chubb is a full participant at practice on Thursday, and it's very exciting as he's coming back from that knee injury suffered last year against the Steelers, and hopefully we'll get to see him on the field soon. In other news, Joe Mixon was able to play last week. He had a great game, in fact, so hopefully fantasy owners recognized that, saw that he was going to play and were able to start him. He still has an injury designation. He was not a full participant at practice on Thursday. He was still limited, but there has been no regression and he's still likely to play. Now, Devin Singletary, the running back for the New York Giants, has been out for the past couple of weeks with a groin injury. He continues to be limited and is most likely not going to play this week. However, Tyrone Tracy Jr. has been a fantastic running back in the meantime. However, the Giants did lose left tackle Andrew Thomas to a Lisfranc injury. And if you're unsure of what that means, check out last week's video as I go into a little bit more detail with it. But he did have surgery. It was successful, but he will unfortunately miss the rest of this season. Now, getting back to Singletary, the groin is a particularly tough injury to deal with in the sense that there's so much musculature in that area, but what we typically think of with our groin muscles are our adductors, and those adductors do a couple of different things. They help to stabilize the pelvis as well as actually adduct the leg, right? Bring it across midline. But depending on the position that your knee and hip are in, they can actually help to flex or extend your hip. So if your knee is more forward, like when you're sitting like this, and you try to extend your leg backwards, your adductors will change their line of pull based on that position and help to extend your hip, and vice versa. If my leg's a little bit more extended and I start to bring my leg forward, that line of pull has changed for my adductors and now they can help to flex my hip. So because they're involved in so much, it's a particularly tough injury to deal with and takes a little bit more time. But generally for a muscular injury like this, it's most likely going to be somewhere around that 4 to 6 week mark, hopefully closer to that 4 week mark that he is out, which he's currently halfway through. So halfway there. Evan Ingram has finally come back from injury. We haven't seen him since week 1. And of course, it was a last minute game time decision. He gets in and he lights up the football field. Unfortunately, Jacksonville still got absolutely beat, to say the least, and say it nicely. But he is back. He still has an injury designation. He was still limited, but there was no regression to report in his injury, and he is likely to play this week, barring any changes moving forward on Friday or Saturday. Jacoby Myers is now the number 1 wide receiver in Vegas for the Raiders out there in Tom Brady's new team. They might need him to suit up at quarterback, which unfortunately is illegal. But getting back to Myers, he's dealing with that ankle injury. He was limited in practice and is currently considered day-to-day depending on how he is feeling. He may or may not play on Sunday. Marvin Harrison Jr. went out early in the game this past Sunday with a concussion, and he is making his way through protocol, but he still has a no contact jersey on, and he only has a couple of days to get back and clear protocol and still get approval from that independent neurologist before he plays. Now, thankfully, the Cardinals play on Monday night, which gives him a nice extra day to try and get back. But make sure you keep an eye on him as he is the Cardinals' top weapon in that passing game, and Kyler Murray would definitely benefit from having him there. Now, we're talking about Raiders receivers. Let's get to the one that had the most headlines this week. Davante Adams was traded to the New York Jets, and he is now, presumably, the number 1 wide receiver there with Aaron Rodgers in New York. Now, miraculously, his hamstring injury disappeared, and he is likely to play Sunday night. Who knows if he's going to be on a snap count, but he has been a full participant at practice, and we should see that Rodgers-Adams connection to each other, which we haven't seen since 2021, which was arguably Rodgers' last best year. It's definitely not this year. Now, unfortunately, we're going to get to the most gruesome injury this week, which is the defensive lineman for the Detroit Lions, Aiden Hutchinson, left mid-third quarter in the Dallas game this past Sunday with a lower leg injury. If you haven't seen the video and you get a little queasy with certain injuries, I highly recommend not watching it. We're not going to show it here, but he did fracture his tibia. He went immediately into surgery after Sunday's game, and there was a rod placed in. So he is expected to miss the rest of the season. He's looking at a 6 to 8 month recovery to allow that bone to heal, get back to weight bearing, walking, running, jogging, and then ultimately sprinting and football activities. It is going to be a longer process for him, but he's a phenomenal player, and we wish him nothing but the best and a quick and speedy recovery. As always, make sure you put down in the comment section, let me know if there's anyone else you want to hear about. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, get engaged so that I can give you the best information possible for the players that you care the most about. And here's to hoping the Jets don't make me cry again, or just the first time. Just the first time. In that case, I'll see you guys next week.